Hello everyone, my name is Erik Teren Mullins, and today we're going to be checking out a figure that's done by an illustrator named Pring. Sorry if I butchered that one. She's made by Ensoutoys, and her name is Dongtan. Of course, to go with the Dongtan dress that she's wearing, she's scaled in at 1:6, and this is considered a budget figure, I guess? Based off of the timestamp of this video, I would kind of say that's where we've gotten. Maybe we could just say she's a bit more on the higher scale of that budget figure line. But I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. Curious to see what the box looks like, and you'd like to see a whole unboxing along with just a quick overview of this figure, I'll be sure to put a link in the description down below. Her base plate looks amazing. I actually really love this. It feels exactly like it'd be the streets of Japan. I really think it's cool how we have the yellow bar along the right side for blind or visually impaired pedestrians to see where they're going. Underneath, there's nothing crazy. We just have one single metal peg that goes up and into her foot. The plastic used for this base is extremely thin, and when you're pegging her into this thing, be very careful, because I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are really trying to get her in there and it just cracks the base. So while really pushing her in there, be sure to stabilize the bottom part of the base. This way you're not going to get any accidental breaks. She's somewhat solid in there. However, her left foot is ever so slightly raised and not touching the base. I don't know if this was supposed to be like that, or if this is just due to the fact that she's a somewhat lower end figure and they didn't really put in the work. Maybe over time they think she's going to lean and that leg will just stabilize her. She's extremely wobbly, though despite that, I never feel like she's going to fall over. However, the base is extremely light. Look at that. But she ain't falling over, so I guess I got no complaints here. The base itself is done using a lighter gray and mustard yellow, where they then go over certain parts with an airbrushed shading to kind of accentuate certain elements of it. From up close, it looks a little bit messy, but from a distance, it's surprisingly effective. Her shoes are done in a matte. We have a little bit of painted on front darker brown part. It definitely looks like her feet are going into these shoes, but I would say that the defining lines and sculpt work for a lot of the detailing on the shoes is pretty weak. Her legs are slender and decently sculpted. Nothing here is too strongly defined, and it doesn't really need to be. These legs go up and into her dress where everything kind of cuts off around the knee. So despite this figure being quite spicy in nature, they're not going the entire distance. Though I'm betting if they added an extra 10k yen to her, they would've. The dress itself, I'd say, is kinda only okay. We get a little bit of definition for her legs as they go up into her hips, however not as much as maybe I would have liked for a tighter dress. The stretches and folds in the fabric are kind of weird here because we seem to get extreme stretches, yet down at the bottom of the dress, things kind of flail outwards, and it doesn't feel as tight as the stretches of the sculptor would lead us to believe. We get a warmer gray for this dress where there's a darker shading airbrush on top, and what's nice about this is it almost gives off the feeling that it's somewhat transparent. Her behind is very well sculpted and detailed, and we get a bit of line work showing off her undergarments. I would say all of this is done only okay. It's really not as professional as I would have liked, but again, this is a lower end figure, and from a shelf, it looks really nice. Going into the front, they really define her hip bones, as well as her stomach and navel. And I personally feel like the sculpt work in this area here is the most defined on the entire figure. But this part right here is amazing. Like, if you're gonna get in on this, you can see that if you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and why not the notification bell? This way you'll be notified of my future videos. She has a tiny waist that hourglasses into a massive chest. In the original illustration by Pring, you can see that her curves are a little more modest, and I would say more realistic, while still being over-exaggerated, of course. But I find it brings a level of elegance and superiority to a design that is already extremely spicy. Unfortunately, I would say that the sculptor didn't get that impression and kind of lost their way when doing this. And I get transferring 2D to 3D can be a real challenge. And despite the fact that I enjoy having a little bit of elegance to my spice, some of you out there might not care, and the fact that she's even more exaggerated and spicier than the source material, you might like this. So I guess at that point it's more personal preference, so you can take it or leave it. This part of the dress definitely seems tight around her chest, as she seems to be beveling out quite strongly from it. We get a cute mole on her right chest, while her left one is sporting this beautiful flower tattoo that was printed on. Despite my complaints about her chest being over the top, it does look more realistic in the way that it hangs off of her as we go up into a strong defining collarbone and her little sweater blazer that she has, keeping her shoulders and arms warm. This blazer looks extremely simplistic. The sculpt work on it is not as defined as I personally would have liked for all the stretches and folds in the fabric, though I'm very appreciative that they chose to make the seam line on the shoulders where they glue in her arms. I know this sounds like something all figure companies should do, but some of them don't, especially lower end ones where they'll put a section off in the most weirdest of spots that doesn't look natural. This does, and I'd say Ensoutoys did a really decent job in general at finding how to attach this figure together so that you don't see seam and mold lines when everything is pushed together. Her right hand is expertly sculpted. I would say it's probably the best sculpted thing on the entire figure, with beautiful pink reflective nail polish. She's holding her cup of coffee in such a nonchalant kind of way, and it really adds a lot of personality to the character. Her cup of coffee is sculpted like a cup of coffee. So nothing special here, but I guess saying nothing isn't necessarily saying something negative, so right on. In her left hand, she's sporting a flip phone. It's my favorite color. And this thing has all sorts of micro detailing to it that's extremely surprising to see. We even get a little bit of gloss on the camera part. It's so small, so unnoticeable, and it's pretty much the only amount of gloss you get on this entire figure, which I would say is the main detriment and disappointment to this figure as a whole. But I'll get into that later. I think I would have maybe liked little keychains or things hanging off of this phone. That seems very stereotypical to me, so I'm surprised they didn't do something like that here. She comes with a cute designer-style purse. Really does feel fashionable with a real metallic chain, though not made of real gold, that you'll take, slide around her arm, and put on her shoulder. And this gives you her full posh effect. I'm absolutely not a fan of this. I would have preferred that this thing clipped in somewhere somehow and was part of her forever once it was in there. I don't like metal things that move around on a figure because this is going to scratch off the paint if she wobbles, which she really does. Just be sure that if you're displaying her, that you're putting her someplace that's not going to move around too much. And she's a similar yet smaller metallic chain going around her neck with this little flower sakura, I don't know, thing at the end of it. And this thing moves around and flies all over the place. As of yet, I wouldn't say that it's scratched her, but again, that's the sort of thing that can happen over time. Her neck is long and elegant and goes up into her ears. Bluetooth headphones in each one. The sculpt for her ear is alright. You get a cute metallic reflective earring. There's a line going down underneath her face. Could have been swappable? It's not. She doesn't come with an extra face, but this is the sort of thing you see on figures like that. I think it's okay. It kind of looks like an illustration, and it's not something you're really going to notice in most angles you're going to have her in. She's wearing a mask because she's better than you and doesn't want to breathe the disgusting air that you're breathing. You pitiful gaijin. And this thing looks like it covers up her face pretty good. You get a decent amount of shading on it. Her eyes are decaled on, and they're done in a semi-matte. I would have liked if the eyelashes were matte and the eyeball was more of a gloss. She definitely has this look of disgust or disdain as she looks down on you from the shelf that you've placed her on every day to remind you that you need to take better care of yourself or something like that. I don't know. Insert joke here, Erik. The hair is so close to being really impressive, but there's a couple elements to it that are just massively disappointing. I would say the overall silhouette and shaping of it looks terrific. The sculpt work is okay, but the choice to have certain parts added here or there sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's ugly. Why even have it? I get that they want to add a bit more volume and strands. Every company wants to do that to make things look so pretty and elegant. But if you're not able to do it properly, you should maybe try and look at other figures and see how they do it so that you can do the similar job, even on a high bracket, lower end figure such as this. We don't get any highlights and we get very minor shading. The bun in the back is okay, but it doesn't feel like it was carved in hard enough to have that hair wrapping around to create a bun effect. Upon her release, she was going for 10,818 yen. That's... When I think budget figures, I tend to think of those boxes that you're going to get out of a claw machine. However, you're paying a premium in order to not play that machine and get the figure that you want. The little paintwork, quality, detail that you get out of these is very similar. But Erik, just look at the size of this figure and that base plate too. Clearly, it's a little bit better, so it warrants a higher price point. And I'd say you're totally right. However, this figure here was roughly 7,000 yen, which is... Annie Mester just killing it. She may be wearing less clothing, but she definitely has a lot more going on in textures and in coloration. Her base might not be as big and impressive as this one, and she doesn't come with a cute fancy bag, but the staff, lenticular eyes, along with the swappable face piece, the horns, and she even came with this epic magnet key that lights up her eyes and has little hearts in it if you choose to do that. I get that this is a newer figure than her, but I wouldn't say the years have been separated far enough for this kind of lack in quality. And I get that Rei here really looks impressive in comparison to the other two here. You're thinking, oh my gosh, well that's clearly a higher end. But upon her release back in 2020, she was going for roughly the same price as her, give or take. Her base is lovely with Shunya's artwork, and the level of different textures and shading we get all across her is extremely impressive. I also have a snail shell figure here, which is roughly the same price as this one too. I get that she might make some of you a little bit uncomfortable depending on how you perceive it. I look at it as being more of a science fiction trope. Regardless, not here to talk about that today. This figure is so well made and so awesome in so many ways that having her stand next to this figure with similar price points and not too much of a gap in years between the two. And the last reference I'm going to show is Owari. This is really not a fair comparison because this is a high-end figure. You'd spend roughly double to get her, but the level of shading, details, quality that we get from this figure is night and day in comparison. And if you have a shelf full of Owari-styled figures and you get this one, she's going to look rather bland standing next to them. I'd say the biggest thing holding this figure back from truly being impressive would just be the major lack of textures or finishes. Her shoes are matte, her skin is matte, her dress is matte, her hair is matte, her mask is matte, everything is matte, with the exception to the use of actual metallics for certain chains, her nail polish, and her earrings. But that's not enough to make this character really pop. Personally, I would have given the shoes more of a gloss, perhaps added a bit of a texture to the coffee cup so it feels more like a cardboard one. Maybe the plastic piece at the top could have been semi-gloss. I definitely would have put a line of highlights across the hair. That anime sheen is something I always love to see, and it would have given her more life. While the dress itself is clearly made from a type of spandex, so why not have a bit of a speckle metallics throughout the texture of the dress in order to kind of reflect that? I understand everything I'm asking for would have greatly increased the price point of this figure. But as it is, I think she's a little too expensive for what you're getting in comparison to the competitions out there that are offering figures at a similar price point. With that aside, I'm not remiss to say this is a very cool design and she is quite attractive for that price point. I'm a huge fan of Nikke. I love D-Killer Wife, and this seems to be as close I'm gonna get to that character ever having a figure. Like always, it depends on your own personal tastes and what you're looking for. From a shelf, looking at her from a distance, she's a fantastic figure. It's only when you really start using a microscope, like I did today, that you start seeing the little cracks and nicks and chips in her overall design and concept and execution. Keep in mind that all the reviews I make, it's really through that microscopic lens, and when you get the figures, I would say usually they're a lot more impressive than I'm going to give them credit for. I just like to show you every single little nook and cranny, so this way you know what you're getting into for those of you that do like to have a figure right next to your computer desk while you're working, while you're drawing, while you're watching anime, and she's going to be right there. If you're somebody that has display cabinets, you can actually appreciate her a lot more because that distance is really flattering for her. Hopefully I help you decide which side of the fence you're on and getting her or not. If you want to see her in other people's collections, I'll be sure to put a link down below for the My Figure collection page. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! For real, it's something I don't talk about often on this channel, but having these lights on me, and then my hat, and then these headphones, and I always want to wear like a cool sweater, it's so hot. Oh my goodness. Ugh. The talking with the moving and the going-onings, it's hot. I talk a lot. I feel like all of you that follow my channel probably knew that about me. I really thought Miri would jump up on the table. Guess not today. Oh, yeah. Hello.